This is what a climbing competition in 2006 looks like. My name's Maddie. I'm a 23-year-old competitive climber from Canada, currently living in Montreal. This is the Darkroom Open competition at Block Shop in Montreal, Canada. It's the first of its kind in Montreal, at least since 2006. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It is a old school competition. And as you can see, each hold has tape on it. The finish holds are marked with like a nice little bucket kind of U shape. It's multicolor, so it's not color coded. There's no volumes, not very many dynos, no paddles, no new school, like trendy moves. It's just kind of crimp hard, do hard moves, drop knee, heel hook, all the kind of basic stuff from back in 2006, but very, very hard and super interesting. For me, I actually started climbing in 2012, or I started competing in 2012. That was my first little local comp, and it was exactly like this. Lots of like kind of simple yet difficult movements, hard, slopey, crimpy holds, and scramble qualifiers, always scramble qualifiers, and then typically a 5-on 5-off final. So that's exactly what we had today at Block Shop for the Darkroom Open. It was an 8 boulder qualifier, so you had to do your 8 best boulders out of the 50 boulder scramble, and then it was a 5-on 5-off final with 4 boulders. So right off the bat, I was not prepared for this competition. We knew going in that there were going to be no dynos, no volumes, but we did not know they would go this far as to, ship a bunch of old holds in from another climbing gym, because of course Block Shop is one of the more modern gyms in Montreal, so they didn't have these holds on hand. So they did bring them in for this event. All these kind of old school pusher, technic, classic holds that you haven't seen in your gym in quite a while, or maybe you still have some of these holds, but definitely here in Montreal, we are very comp focused, so we don't see these holds every day. And yeah, they really went all out. They did multicolor routes. So, you're just following the tape color and not necessarily the hold color. So that was quite hard. At first when we're looking at what boulders to do, we're like, I don't know where this boulder goes. Like, is that chip mine? Okay, I need to register that I need to follow the tape and not the hold color. So especially in a scramble qualifier, it's always hard to kind of differentiate one boulder from another. And when the hold color is all over the place, it was sometimes hard for me to get flashes when I, didn't realize I had that foot, or I missed a hold or something like that. Something else that was hard about this round is that it was mostly crimps. As you can imagine, back in the day, in order to get a boulder harder, we typically would have to make the holds worse and smaller. So that was definitely the case on a lot of boulders today. There were definitely some hard moves, like lots of body tension necessary, a little bit of cutting your feet. That was quite common. But overall, lots and lots of crimps. Almost every single boulder I tried in the qualifier had a crimp in it, which I was not prepared for. I did my typical jug haul warm up, and then I jumped onto some crimpy boulders. And honestly, I felt like I was going to get injured early on in my qualifying session. The jug haul just did not warm me up for what I was about to do. It's about the tendons, and doing a jug haul just does not do it justice.
Okay, so let's just not use the jug foothold over there,
I did see that when I cut feet, but I had already committed to jump. So basically, Zach was there filming me, but he was also there kind of helping me through this experience. He wasn't competing because he's still dealing with a bit of a shoulder tweak / injury. And so he was actually helping me through this qualifier a little bit. Now at this point in my career, I can do it on my own, but it is always helpful to have someone there, because especially with something like this, all of us modern comp climbers are not used to this kind of style. So he was actually getting me to go back down a little bit into some of the lower grades to warm up a little bit more before I went for the hard boulders. Because of course I knew, I was looking at them, I think I can do 41, 42, and honestly, getting on them too soon, you can get away with it maybe in some more modern climbing situations where it's more about just doing a paddle or doing some sort of skill-based movement. But when it's just hard, small crimps, you will not be ready for those, no matter no matter how motivated or how well you've sequenced your boulder. If you're not fully warm on your crimps, it can cause injury, and it can be very uncomfortable, and you will not perform quite as well as you think you will. So I had to scale it back quite a bit in my qualifier. And then once we were ready, we went back to boulder 40, which is the one you're seeing right now. So this was the first boulder where I think I was finally warm. And this was a perfect one to be warm on, because I believe this is the one that was the crimpiest in the entire competition. Because this is I think it's either a slab or a vertical boulder. So you got to make those crimps really small because you can handle it on this kind of terrain. So yeah, this was the first boulder where I actually felt like good. I'd crimp something for like 30 seconds, just like figuring out where to put my feet, and I'd be holding this tiny micro foot chip, and my fingers did not hurt afterwards. So this is where I knew I was in the groove of it. So this is my second attempt, and honestly, you can see all the orange tape on the wall. There were a million foot chips. Some of them you're supposed to grab, some of them you're supposed to put your feet on. There were a million different options, and it was crazy because the name of the game in this entire competition was honestly sequencing. Like, it's very easy to power out on boulders like this, especially, again, as comp climbers, we're not used to crimping anymore, one after another. So a lot of us were caught off guard by that. I was definitely very caught off guard by that. But yeah, sequencing was super essential in order to not waste energy and get pumped on these crimps. So this is a boulder I had to come back to after re-warming up. And this is number 44. So it became the hardest one I was looking at for my scorecard. And you can see I'm just like foot slipping left, right, and center on this thing. But all the holds were pretty bad. And it was all about like finding that body tension and just bearing down on these crimps finally. When I realized how warm I needed to be for it, that's when I realized it's not that it wasn't hard, but I was making it so much harder by not being fully prepared for it. So after that, we finally found our stride here. I sent number 44, so I was feeling really good about my scorecard. We had to get 8 boulders for our qualifier, so I needed quite a few more at this point. So here I am on number 35. This one was actually a little bit less crimpy than the rest of them. So this was a bit of a break in the crimp fest that was my qualification round. And then we moved on to number 41, which this one I was actually also really proud of, because this is the other side of the old school climbing, which is these bad sloping holds. It's like there's a good mix of crimps and like bad pinches and slopers. So this was an awesome situation where the slopers actually became the hardest part of that boulder. So we're moving on to the final round. And right away, they start us off with a dyno, which in the description of the event, it said no dynos, but this is a super simple dyno. This is like an old school style, like no paddle. It's not a 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just a simple, like kind of around the arete kind of dyno. And what's great about this final round is that all the boulders are very spaced out. So yes, they still have the multicolor tape guide, but there's no whole like other climbs conflicting with your final boulder. So you don't have to wonder if that foot's mine or miss it when you're sequencing it or something. It's all right there in front of you. So I was very happy to be in the final round finally. And yeah, this boulder was actually really, really hard. I'd say overall, this whole comp has been one of the hardest comps I've done. Like pure physical difficulty, it was definitely way up there. And this final boulder was no different. Like the dyno was not too bad, but these next moves, like something that's hard too about these kinds of holds is that you don't know where to grab them. Like in modern climbing, maybe sometimes you don't know exactly where to hold something, but like these last few blue holds, like they've got those like divots and like kind of bumps. And if you don't hit them just right, you'll have to like adjust it, and you're like wasting energy and time like adjusting your hand because it's not on a good point, or maybe you're too pumped to move it and then you just have to move off of this like really terrible hold. You're also going sometimes for finish holds that you don't recognize. Maybe you don't know what that hold is. And so there was a lot of guesswork to do with this comp, and it was very, very difficult, like for many reasons that aren't typical of your normal competition. Lots of different challenges that I had to face in this one. So with the top on number 1, I think after the round, I realized that this number 1 was the only one that had tops on it already. So after I topped number 1, I was in a good position, but I needed more in order to win the competition, which of course I had my eyes on. So boulder 2 here, I believe this is the high point, this blue hold here. And again, this is another situation where I could not find the perfect divot to put my hand in. And maybe I did, and it was just like really bad, and that was what I was supposed to hold. But regardless, yeah, I hit that one blue hold, and I could not move off of it effectively. That first attempt, I think, was probably my best attempt. There might have been one, this might be another good attempt here. But honestly, like I just could not figure out where to put my hands. And, you know, it's super tiring at this point as well, because in the qualifier, like I said, I wasn't really warm for what I was going to be asked to do, which is crimps and crimps and crimps. So for this final round, I decided to like over warm up. Like I really overdid it. I was climbing, like warming up to like 5 minutes before my first boulder, which typically at World Cups, you'll have upwards of like 15-20 minutes before you get on your first boulder, because you'll have one chair, then you might have to take like a little van to the next chair, and then you'll have another chair. There's always a bunch of chairs to sit in before a World Cup round starts. But for this guy, you know, the chair was right there, and so they brought us like 5 minutes before our round, and I was like climbing right up until the last minute. So I over warmed up to the max because I did not want to get injured, but I obviously over warmed up. So I was a little bit warm, I was a little bit pumped on this boulder. And honestly, taking so many attempts on this boulder and the first boulder was really getting me tired. So I had to really watch it. At this point, I'm a little bit better because I just had a 5-minute break, and I stepped off a little bit early on the second boulder. But this one is a cave boulder. So if I wanted any energy for the last boulder, I was gonna need to top this. And I was feeling very confident because I've been in a spray wall / campusing phase in my training, and so this was extremely up my alley. I haven't actually transitioned to my on-sighting phase yet, or at least I've spent maybe 2 weeks on-sighting, so this is still very much me in my peak campusing state. So this boulder went exceptionally well. Like I said, this was the only top on this boulder, and I was really, really happy with how I performed on that boulder. I felt super strong. And I was really psyched to get to the top of that. And the audience was very psyched for me to get to the top of that as well. So I was really happy at that point. And I was pretty sure I was somewhat in the lead. But this competition, the finals round, is points per hold, which is actually probably a little more old school than I'm even used to. I don't think I ever competed in a 5-on-5-off final with points per hold. I think the IFSC is sort of coming back to that in a way. But yeah, points per hold was a little bit strange. So I guess that's what it used to be back in like the 2006, 7, 8 era. But yeah, with that said, it's hard to know who's in the lead because, you know, someone could be getting, 50% of the way on each boulder, or you could get one top and still be behind that other person. So I didn't know. All I knew was I needed more. I just needed to keep climbing as high as I possibly could. So this is this is what I thought was the hardest boulder of the round. Maybe the second boulder was up there too, but this white crimp I'm holding was so small. Like, it's also a gentle overhang here. So this tiny little razor crimp is just like really eluding me at this point. And I'm gonna need to try something different in order to do this. So you can see I'm hyping up the crowd, which every time I've ever done this in my climbing career, I always don't send when I do that. But in this case, I was deciding to use some different beta, and I thought maybe this beta could be the key. So as you'll see, I decided to throw my foot onto this start hold to get this crimp, and then you can see I'm like right under the crimp when I put my foot there. So I had a decent time getting to the next hold, and I surprisingly got all the way to the top. And the crowd just went crazy. I was the final climber out. So that was the first top, and I was the last climber. So it was crazy time, and I think I put on a pretty good show. I'm really happy to have sent that boulder at the very end there, and that secured the win for me. So it was a very, very successful event. I felt like I hangboarded like 10 times that day. I took a rest day afterwards as well because I was just so trashed. I think everyone was trashed after this kind of comp, because again, we just don't do this enough. Like, we just don't do this volume of this kind of climbing. Yeah, so this was continuing this good start of the 2025 season for me. There's one more competition we've got in Montreal before the IFSC season starts, so tune in for that.